We are going to go where, well, I was going to say no man has gone before, but that's a lie. You'll find out. Hey, everybody, how are you? So, we had our first snowy day in New York. My friend is upstate and said this wasn't our first snowy day. It snows up there in July, but we had about 3.5, 4 inches, and in Queens, just enough to annoy you. And I actually had to travel in this, so it wasn't the greatest travel, but it is what it is. I'm here. How are you, everybody? Did the 1980s redefine music? Did it redefine you? Did it define you? It depends how old you are. I was in my 20s in the 80s, and it did redefine me a bit. And I'll tell you why, because the songs of the 80s were much different. First of all, you had a lot of overproducing, glossy production, drum machines and synthesizers and echo and all the stuff that engineers love. At least they loved it then. If you listen to any 80s CD now, a lot of it didn't stand up well. The years were not friendly. You listen to some 60s stuff, although it wasn't really recorded with the technological advances that we have today, the 80s was tremendously advanced. It's like it was 50 years past the 60s. So much had come out by then. But I look at songs in the 80s and why was it so defining? Well, when you're in your 20s, it's defining because you're dating. For the most part, I'm not talking about teenage dating, high school. You're dating in your 20s. You're also driving your car in your 20s. So there were cassette tapes back then that you would pre-make. That was very big back then. The record, play, and pause button, put the album on, lift it up, make your own cassette tapes, specialized cassette tapes, which was cool. And I missed that actually. And it was different. You were dating a girl. The music meant a little more to you, a little less to you, whatever the case. And you were continually listening to music in the car, whether you were on a date, not on a date, just music. You're not going to be silent in a car. So I remember a couple of songs that really meant a lot to me. But one of the major things was the second British invasion, which really started in the late 70s with Elvis Costello, Joe Jackson, The Police, uh, Dire Straits, The Clash in 79, post punk pop, I guess. And The Clash did it amazing. In fact, I think today was the anniversary of London Calling being released in 1979, a double album, and it was great. But I didn't get familiar with The Clash until the 80s. But great band. And the second wave of British invasion, which started in the late 70s, took on a new wave because you had The Police and Elvis Costello really making their mark into the 80s. But then you had some new bands come out in the early 80s, Duran Duran, Culture Club, stuff like that, Thompson Twins, Robert Palmer, where the 80s had gotten its footing, and the advent of MTV and VH1 in 80, 81, and that was the difference maker. Those shows were star makers. It let everyone put the face to the music. You saw who your favorite artists were, what they looked like. Before that, it was either People magazine, The Inquirer, maybe Rolling Stone magazine, or an odd talk show here and there. But you really saw what they looked like. In fact, I told a story that one of the first songs that I ever learned to drum on was Build Me Up Buttercup in 1970 by the Foundations. I never knew that the lead singer was African American until the 80s. So you learn. But there were some great songs in the 80s, and there were some great stories behind these songs. Some, hey Joe, hey Mitch, some actors, actresses played singers. You go into the 90s, the Doors movie with Val Kilmer was great. So the 80s bled into the early 90s. Like I said, Abbey Road to me was the first album of the 70s, although it was 69, but it was 70s to me. Well, the first album that started the 2000s for me was the Tears for Fears last album. I think it had Sowing the Seeds of Love. Great album. And that ended the 90s for me. But an album that ended the 80s for me probably was Depeche Mode's Enjoy the Silence. I think that came out in 89 or just turning into 90. And the music was starting to change. From 82 to 85, music was very constant with the British. And then you saw Madonna, Cyndi Lauper, Whitney Houston. After 85, music had changed a lot, believe it or not, from like 85 to 89, and the 90s went in with the Nirvana and that scene. But George Michael's Careless Whisper, it made George Michael, first of all, it made everyone stand up and take notice that he was a credible artist outside of the pop fun of Wham. I recently watched that Christmas CD, and it was an extra on one of the CDs that I had, a package deal. It had the Last Christmas video, and I found my CD player and I watched it. Then I went on YouTube, and great video, and it really showed that he was to be reckoned with. Now, Careless Whisper was released while he was still in the boy band with Andrew Ridgeley, but the song chopped everyone. It chopped everyone down like the forest. You couldn't get bigger around the world. It was co-written with Andrew when they were 17. And the song took inspiration from the stories from Michael's early romantic experiences with two different girls. So he did like girls back then. So the late, great George Michael. Now, the whole idea of the song was the first girl finding out about the second, which she never did. But he started a relationship with this girl called Alex or Alexis, one of the two, without finishing the one with Jane. And it got a little complicated. Jane found out about it and got rid of him. The whole time he thought he was being cool and pulling the wool over her eyes. And there wasn't much involved after that with emotion. And he did feel guilty about the first girl. And he had seen her since and told her the song was about her. And they danced a lot. So it was about them dancing. That's what he had written it about. And she knows it's finished. You have the great Billie Jean. That defined the 80s. And in fact, Billie Jean is a song that has several claims on the meaning of that song. One suggests that it came from a real life fan that claimed Michael Jackson had fathered her twins or one of his brothers. but Jackson said it was based on groupies that he had encountered during his younger years. Younger, he was young then. And it was promoted with a short film that broke down MTV's racial barrier, actually, because MTV had just started, and his performance on Motown 25, where he broke out the moonwalk. It's one of the greatest pop songs of all time. It has a timeless quality, and it's great. Now, talking about that album, the great Thriller album, the backing band was Toto. And it's very hard not to start chanting when the song Africa comes on. Now, in 2014 or 15, David Pace, who was the keyboard and pianist, said the song was about loving a continent, I don't know, rather than a personal romance. He watched a late documentary with depictions of the African American plight and Africa, and it had an impact on him. It appalled him, it moved him, and the pictures, he just couldn't forget it. He tried to imagine how we'd feel if he were there, and he put it in a song. Everyone knows the song In the Air Tonight because Phil Collins was like a god in the 80s, famous for his epic drum solos, his epic drum machines. But it was his debut solo written during his divorce with his first wife, Simone. It takes a dark monologue towards an unnamed person. Now, an urban legend claimed that it was about a drowning incident. And someone who was close enough to save the victim didn't, while Collins was too far away and looked on. I don't know. And it was used in a dairy milk advertisement in 2007. A gorilla drummed along with it. Why not? Then you have Whitney Houston. Like I said, I Want to Dance with Somebody. Feel-good song, one of the best feel-good songs ever released. It was from her second album, the lead single. It was written by George Merrill and Shannon Rubicam. Boy Meets Girl. And they previously offered her Waiting for a Star to Fall, but she turned it down. It's one of her biggest songs of all time. I Want to Know What Love Is. That's their biggest hit, Foreigner. Cheesy band, but they got lucky. Great power ballad, and it reached number one both in the UK and the US. Mick Jones, he didn't know where it came from, the song. He considered it a gift that was sent through him. It's amazing when you have a hit song, all of a sudden someone's speaking through you, and you're just failing when it's not big. It was probably written by a higher force. Well, I guess they left him real quick because that was really the only big hit. You had ABBA, The Winner Takes It All. Lionel Richie, All Night Long. Caribbean influence song. Tambo Lee De Se De Moya and Jumbo. African lyrics. It was made up words. They don't exist. It was a wonderful joke. And we bought it to the tune of millions of records. Also, a young Richard Marx recorded the backing vocals for the song. He wasn't known at the time. I'll give you a couple of more that meant something, then I'll tell you why they did. Purple Rain, Prince, right? It was originally written as a country song, and it was supposed to be a collaboration with Stevie Nicks. When there's blood in the sky, red, blue equal purple. The end of the world. Being with the one you love and letting your boyfriend, faith, God, whomever, guide you through the purple rain. It was his signature song. And during the Super Bowl halftime show, he performed it in the rain. So that's how powerful he was. Then you had the Human League Don't You Want Me? I love the Human League. One of the best-selling singles of the 80s. Yep. Um, it was a Christmas song for them. Sold over 1.5 million records, released in 81. It was inspired by the singer Philip Oakley, who read a story in Teen Girls magazine. And he was also inspired by the film A Star is Born. Decided to turn the song into a duet. Uh, I think Sue Sully was asked to take on the role as the other singer. And she was taken by luck of the draw because there were a few singers in that band. You Have Every Breath You Take. Police, big song, right? And that's when he separated from his wife, Sting. There was a lot of fighting in the studio at that time. They were actually physically punching each other. Now, I didn't know that Andy Sumner is like 8 years older than them, or 10 years older than them. I believe, maybe 6 years. It's a nasty little song, and it's pretty evil. And their final album, Synchronicity, it was the first release from that album. And they won Song of the Year at the end of the 84 Grammy Awards, staying at the top of the Billboard charts for 2 months. It was a good song. But Sting's powerful guy. Take On Me by Aha. Simply Red. In Excess, you can't forget them. Kate Bush, Running Up That Hill was pretty good. Phil Oakley did a song with Giorgio Moroder, Together in Electric Dreams. And they were great in that. Electric Dreams, good. Beat It, of course. Islands in the Stream. That was written for Marvin Gaye by Barry, Robin, and Maurice. And they turned it into a country crossover. And in fact, first time a country song became number one on the pop charts in Billboard. They were singing in the studio in L.A. And evidently, one of the Gibb brothers said, I don't like this song anymore. We need Dolly Parton. And the rest is history. Funny thing, Kenny Rogers really went on to have a very eclectic career. Like a Prayer, Madonna. How can you forget that song? It's about a passionate girl in love with God who becomes the only male figure in her life. Evidently, I think Madonna witnesses a murder by white supremacists in that video, right? A black man's arrested for the murder. Madonna hides in a church, and a dream sequence about kissing a black saint. Yeah, of course. The Vatican condemned the video. Religious groups protested, and it even made her bigger because of that. Let's Dance, David Bowie. 1982, Nile Rodgers meets David Bowie. Rodgers started becoming very close with Duran Duran and did a lot of their stuff. In a New York club, Continental, it was called. The two shared a conversation about musical interests. Bowie later invited Rodgers to his house in Switzerland. He assumed it was an audition. Rodgers of Chic. And they worked together. And that was one of the biggest hits of his career. Sweet Dreams, the Eurythmics. Man in the Mirror, Michael Jackson. You notice Michael Jackson has a lot. Paul Simon, You Can Call Me Al. So there were so many great songs. I'm not going to mention Squeeze. Let me just get to some of you here. Code Octavia. How are you, Octavia? Who loved Ryan and Joey? I don't know. You can share it, of course. Hey, Larry. No, Prince, I did mention him. Richard Marx was good. Pet Shop Boys, Dusty Springfield. Yeah, didn't Dusty Springfield with Pet Shop Boys? A lot of great, great artists in the 80s. Now, the 80s was a decade that was in your face. Colors, everything was in your face. Everyone seemed to have money, whether you worked or not. And it was a fun time. Technology, the Walkman was actually the head of Sony developed that for his long trips on planes. He wanted to hear his own music. I remember the Walkman. Then I remember they came in colors and like a putrid blue. They were cool. And we just really went to hell with ourselves. Now, it depends what age you were. Because if you were in your 20s in the 80s, you had a hell of a good time. Because those are the party years. Those are in your 20s, you're at clubs, right? And the 80s was just the way to be. You had to be the 80s. The 80s controlled every move you made. And you couldn't help but get involved in it. Some people stay away from decades. Some people totally immerse themselves in it. Some people have no choice but to get really immersed and love every second of it. And I did, in fact. The 80s was just amazing. It really was. A story about Toto. Michael McDonald was like 15 minutes away from being the lead singer of Toto because Bobby Kimbrell was friends with Steve Lukather. And he had a handshake agreement for him to join the band. And Pace had promised a couple of minutes after that, Michael McDonald. McDonald would have been very interesting to hear McDonald as the lead singer of Toto. Really would have been odd. And Bobby Kimbrell, great singer. A lot older than them. I think he's like 10 or 15 years older than them, actually. But they were a power band of the 80s. And the 80s was the decade of causes. Live Aid, how could you forget that? 85. That really put 80s music into the showcase. And it revived some other bands. Queen wasn't even going to perform. They were broken up. You put Paul McCartney after the disaster of Give My Regards to Broad Street in 84. In 85, he could live that down a bit. In Culture Club and Duran Duran and Sting doing the background Money for Nothing, Mark Knopfler, Dire Straits. And that song, Money for Nothing, was played every 3 minutes, whether you were VH1 or MTV. You couldn't get away from it. Now, there are some really cool adverts, and you may remember them. Let's go. Why don't we go to 1984? That was the year. And we're going to see if you remember this, if you're old enough. Even those power chords of the 80s.
Turn it on. Leave it on.
I want my MTV. You want your MTV.
I want my MTV.
I want my MTV.
Turn it on.
Leave it on. America. See the music you want to see.
I want my MTV. All right.
Turn it on. Leave it on.
I want my MTV.
I want my MTV.
I want my MTV.
Turn it on.
Leave it on.
I want my MTV. I want my MTV.
I want my MTV.
I want my MTV.
I want my MTV 24 hours a day on cable TV.
Too much.
Yeah, too much.
Never.
Too much is never enough.
They got the old Stone. And then if you want to go to 88,
Like a top-down neon drive-in, like a sugar ray of breath, like made in the shade, like making the grade, like the code of the old wild
ABJ.
west. Like Larry, Moe, and Curly, fast cars and fancy shoes, like Buffalo Bob and a lucky dog, and like cats who sing the blues. I'm an American original, the first draft beer in a can, tapping ice cold coolers with a friend of yours. Put a fresh draft beer in your hand.
Brewery Fresh draft beer in bottles and cans. That's been Coors for over 25 years. Taste the original today.
I'm an American original, the first draft beer in a can, tapping ice cold coolers with a friend of yours. Put a 12-ounce keg in your hand.
and we have another commercial.
Introducing the latest in musical equipment. La Bamba. The all-American rock to riches story is now on video cassette. La Bamba. And the Buddy Holly story, available for the first time on home video.
Unreal, right? Time flies. I was going to say when you're having fun, but when you're aching and getting old. But the 80s wouldn't be the 80s without this. I'm sorry. You can do all of your nostalgia, but you got to have this with you, or it all means nothing.
There he is. What a happening dude.
Let's talk about this.
There's a super party animal. Yeah. His name is Fox McKenzie. A barbecue inside. A barbecue. And a cold Bud Light. A cold Bud Light. Puts him in a party frenzy. In a party frenzy. He's Bud McKenzie. Bud Light's original party animal. Go, Bud, go. Go, Bud, go. Go, Bud, go.
But you really cooking now.
All right.
That's a pretty good one. This one's okay.
Who's that? The life of the party, that's who.
It's Mitch.
There's a super party animal. His name is Bud McKenzie. When the sun shines bright on a cold.
You can't make it up. Like, how could you not like that era? That's what commercials look like back then. Let me give you a couple of more. I'm going to give you some 1986 commercials. How's that?
Bite into a Starburst and hold on to your taste buds. It's the wildest orange. Strawberry.
Those are the colors that people wore back then,
And
BJ.
wildest cherry taste. Starburst. It's a burst of refreshing fruit flavor. Naturally and artificially flavored. Come share the wonderful world of Disney.
Look at this.
Soon this street will be teeming with people, tasting exotic foods from all over the world.
Thank you. Is it good?
Good and spicy.
Now Anne is about to experience a problem that's universal.
Harp, I've got heartburn. Can you beat that?
As a matter of fact, I can.
Pepto for heartburn?
Sure.
As Pepto coats, it soothes heartburn, as well as upset stomach and diarrhea.
I didn't know you could tongue us.
I can't.
Pepto-Bismol, the one that coats, is the only one you need.
It's the newest treat from Dairy
Rangers, 2.9 on Bronco 2s, 2.9 on F-150s, and 2.9 on F-250s. So hurry, see your Northwest Ford dealer now while selections are best.
Look at my face. I'm going to take off all this makeup with something you've never seen before.
No, take off.
Velvety Claws.
Taking breakfast by the hand.
Pretty neat.
Oh, don't look sad. You look cuter.
Time for the great taste.
50 pages tonight? Oh, great.
It's a good time for the great taste.
Tomorrow will be better.
You mean we gotta go back?
Of McDonald's.
Crisco fruit wheat cereal. Real fruit in every bite.
Yeah, I do, BJ. Yes, testosterone was loved back then. There wasn't toxicity because men wanted to act like men. Because when you're a guy, that's what you are. But yeah, you didn't have a lot of man haters. Even the man haters kind of liked them, and they just didn't like them as much as some people who loved them. But it wasn't bad. But incredible. Incredible. Now, I'm going to give you a bonus. 1978. I remember this because I was in high school, and what I used to do, Mary Tyler Moore was on at 1:30 in the morning, 2:33. There were like 4 of them. And I fell in love with that show and was always tired. But this commercial used to always come on. I'll show it to you. This commercial always came on. And I remember it fondly.
Oh, when you think you're ready, go down to Crazy Eddie, the man who's got most everything. Stereo sound, his audio selection, Molly with your perfection. He's the man with all the lowest prices around. So come on down and put it to the test. See whose prices really are the best. Who picks you up with the sound of fit your place and guaranteed a smile upon your face. Oh, when you think you're ready, walk down to Crazy Eddie, the man who's got most everything. Stereo sound,
and so the story's told across the whole wide world. Crazy Eddie will not ever be undersold.
Crazy. That was hey Reed, amazing. Crazy Eddie's, and Crazy Eddie, there was a store right near my house, and Eddie Antar tried to leave to go to Israel and run away from here for tax evasion, and he used to sell returns. That was his big thing. He'd sell returns and not care because it was Christmas time and he just wanted to bulk up sales and he'd take them all back after Christmas. That's what he used to do. Let's see if I can find one that you'll really like here. See if you remember this.
Hi there, friends. It's Jeffrey. When you come to Toys R Us, you can meet me, along with Gigi and little baby G. And wait till you hear who else you can see.
You'll meet the amazing Spider-Man at Toys R Us. The Incredible Hulk will be there, too. You'll see that beautiful crime fighter, Wonder Woman. The dynamic duo of Batman and Robin, and cute little Jeffrey Jr., too.
The local newspapers will have time and place. Toys R Us.
Or...
So,
The third one down.
Remember when toys looked like that?
Third one down.
See the price? $8.97.
I've got a little brother who loves them, and he uses them all the time.
Yeah, yeah, Coney Island Avenue. Yeah, and Kings Highway. I lived on V in Coney for a while. And then it turned into another electronics store. I forget what it was called. Yeah, Crazy Eddie's. If you remember, Lester's was the big store that was on the corner. And also, what was it? Richfield Clothes? Was that Richfield or Brooks Brothers or one of the big clothes stores around the corner too? But yeah, the 80s, as you can see, it redefined me. I don't know if that's good or bad, but the 80s music, and I'm going to share with you a song that really takes me back. This is a song. This doesn't bring you back from the 80s. I don't know what will. Me too, Larry.
When I look back upon my life, it's always with a sense of shame. I've always been the one to blame. For everything I long to do.
Yeah, there's so much in the 80s. Now, I bounced at a club Shout. I bounced at the China Club. I bounced at a few clubs. But 43rd between 6th and Broadway Shout in the 80s was incredible. It was the music was different. It's a Sin, great song. They were very good. Actually, I've looked around. They play in England. I'd spend $1,000 to go see them. I would, I'm being serious. I love them. Maybe because it brings me back a little differently than other bands bring me back. But There was just so much to love about the music of the 80s. And then you have Paul McCartney trying to be an 80s monster. Thank God he stopped because he had a weak 80s. He rebounded in the 90s after Tug of War and Pipes of Peace in the early 80s. 84 was the movie, and he had a very tough time, I think. But this is Paul trying to be Paul, the new 80s Paul. Yes, Octavia, I do.
Sleazy instruments, half taught, half baked idea.
You listen to this. I don't know what that means, Octavia. The 80s, mid 80s weren't very friendly to Paul. Paul didn't know where he was. You know, in 1986, Paul's a 44-year-old guy who is following the trends now instead of setting them. Remember, Paul was a trendsetter in the 60s. Paul now is trying to follow to become relevant. Come Together, great song, Octavia. Great song. And then, of course, if you want to go back to one of the greatest scenes in any movie, all you have to do is close your eyes and think about this.
Parents, future.
What are you interested in?
You're crazy!
What do you think Ferris is gonna do?
It's gonna be a fried cook, I think.
Well, shake it up, baby, now. Shake it up, baby. Twist and shout. Twist and shout. Come on, baby, now. Come on, baby. Come on and work it all out. Work it all out. Work it all out. Work it all out. You know you look so good. Look so good. You know you got me going now. Just like I knew you would. Like I knew you would. But shake it up, baby, now. Shake it up, baby. Twist and shout. Twist and shout. Come on, baby, now. Come on, baby. Come on and work it on out. Work it on out. You know you twist it, little girl. Twist it, little girl. You know you twist so fine. Twist so fine.
That was a great movie. Don't make you laugh. Hope you're doing well, Octavia. So, music in the 80s, I believe, became so special because of MTV and VH1. Music was used in movies more, soundtracks now, where it wasn't that prevalent in the 60s. You might hear a Frank Sinatra tune. And the Beatles didn't let their tunes go until in the 2000s with Good Morning for a cereal commercial. But that song's great, and that movie's great. And if you want to cap off a great 80s movie, you don't have to look all that far.
can't play without him.
Yeah, well, look, Marvin, you gotta play.
My darling dear.
Hey, boy, you all right?
It's an oldie where I come from.
One of the best movies of all time.
Way down in Louisiana, down in New Orleans, way back up in the woods.
And he really plays guitar. So I know you're not a serial killer. I know that, Octavia. You're a serial killer for all the relationships you've murdered. So the 80s. What more can I say? Music was music in the 80s. Now, is it because I was in my 20s and playing in a band, or was it just different? I think it was different. And I know you do because you stayed in to watch. Have a great night, everybody. Now, I will talk to you soon. Happy holidays.